All right. So, what happens after death? That is a very good question on a lot of people's minds. And to answer that properly, one first must ask two other very important questions, and that is, who are we and where do we come from? If you could answer those two questions, the answer for death or your thoughts about death will shift and the answer should come naturally. So, welcome. Hope all of you are doing well. Some very deep topics here we're going to get into. And so I hope this unscripted video will turn out well. So let's get into it. So we want to eventually we're asking three questions basically, but our big goal here is to get to what happens when we die. So let's address who are we and where do we come from? So people think, well, I'm my body, I'm my thoughts inside my head. And when those stop, then I will cease to exist. So I propose to you that that's not true. That's not who we really are. And I don't want to get into where we come from, but we come from an eternal source, and we need to describe eternity as well. But who we are is not limited to our body. The body that I have. This is not the same body that I was born with. Cells die and replace themselves all the time. So it's our bodies, our minds are like AI machines. Especially in today's times, this should be really easy to understand because if you look at an AI machine, you can talk to your own AI machine if you want, and Chat GPT or whatever, and ask it the difference, and it'll tell you that it is not aware as to where an animal, a human being is aware. Even plant life is aware to some degree. So it's this eternal awareness is who we are. And so it's easy to think, well, I'm an individual and my neighbor down the street is an individual. It's kind of like thinking about space. There's the space in my office. There's a space where you're at. There's a space inside your local Walmart. There's the space in the parking lot. So how many different spaces are there? There's just one. There's just one big space with the illusion of multiple spaces. So you could say the same thing of, well, how many different awarenesses are there? There's just one. There's one big awareness. The awareness that I'm experiencing and the awareness that you're experiencing and the awareness that my dog is experiencing is all the same awareness, one big awareness, and it's being filtered. Kind of like when white light hits a prism and spreads out and you say, oh, look, there's purple, there's orange, there's red. And you say, look at all these different colors. Excuse me, look at all these different colors, but they're actually just one color. They're different angles of perspective of the same one color. They just give the appearance of being separate, just like all of us. If everybody would understand this overnight, the amount of love that would increase and the amount of understanding would greatly increase if people would simply understand they're not separate beings. So I'm trying to address the who are we. I'm trying to do a quick version. So, we come from God. Okay, what does that mean? What is that? We're creating God's image. What does that mean? Well, that's the awareness. It's just one big expression of God. And we already have divinity inside. Christ said the kingdom of God is within you. It's not some temple somewhere. It's within you. And so all things are waking up to this. It's not something to be discovered. It's already within you. And that's what major religion tries to stomp out and shut down immediately, that God is some separate being somewhere. God is not separate. God cannot create outside of himself, just like you can't create a character in your imagination and then pluck that character out and have them exist by their own right. Okay, so I can't help but talk about who we are and talk about where we come from. And I've had, years ago, I had face-to-face debate in the early 90s with a friendly debate with an atheist who believed there was nothing outside the physical world, but there's not even a physical world. First of all, you have to understand that. But I told her, I said, okay, so you think we come from nothing? She said, yes, that's correct. And I said, okay, so when you die, you return to the same nothing that once gave you life. And now I mean, just think about that. That's deep. But God is not this separate, far off being sitting in the clouds. That's what major religion will teach you. And that's where a lot of people say, well, I don't believe in God. I don't think it's that they don't believe in God. I think it's more that they don't believe in what they're told, what they're taught, that God is a separate being. You can't point to any being or any one thing and say, aha, there's the totality of God. You cannot. Okay, so where do we come from? Well, I think it's interesting that the Bible says, let us create man in our image and our likeness, and we created them. And, it's like, why is this plural form used? And, I've heard all these ridiculous answers. None of them make any sense, except for maybe that because we're all there, we're all taking our part. But when did this happen? Well, it happened in eternity. Well, eternity is all there is. So I'm trying to express on where we come from. There is no past. And, oh, wait a minute, I remember this or I remember that. Yes, but you remember, those are just thoughts that happen in the now. The now is eternity. There is no, think about it. You can't measure the now. You can't quantify it. You can't dice it up. There is no beginning. There is no end. It's just the now. Because, in eternity, there's no beginning and no end. Okay, but in their mind, when I hear them talk, they express views of a point in time, then it starts, but then it just goes on and never ends. I remember when I was a kid, I heard a pastor say something about people burning in hell for all eternity. And as a kid, I was starting to put together some ideas that said, well, wait a minute. Either this pastor doesn't understand eternity or there's something else going on, because eternity is not something you can just hop into or out of. It's ever present God, ever present now, ever present awareness. If you don't feel comfortable using spiritual terms for whatever reason, that's fine. You can say, I personally use God, but I try to also use it synonymously with awareness because it's one and the same. But we all have that awareness. We all have that spark of divinity in us. There is nothing else but God. God is all that exists. So what happens when this physical body dies? Well, this body returns back to the earth from whence it came, and my mind stops, okay? But that awareness that sits right behind the eyes will continue to go, and it has always been here. It's ever present. My awareness, your neighbor's awareness has always been present, and one form or another, it's just filtered through different angles of perspective, if you will. So your awareness, who you truly are, because think about it, your mind, you say, well, I'm my thoughts, but your mind goes from one thought to the next. They come and go and vanish just as quickly as clouds in the sky. But it's that awareness, and this is what AI lacks. So what happens when we die? Well, all things are working, this is where I'm going to sound a little hypocritical, are working their way back to God. And you've never been separate from God. It's just waking up to the awareness. It's waking up to this love. God is love. Love is God. If you want to become more wise or understand more, you start with love. If you can't love, then anything else you learn doesn't matter. That's how important it is that love comes first, because nothing else matters after that. And then you'll have now I don't know the details of what happens when I die or you die or whatever with this physical body. I don't even describe it as that anymore, as death. It's just transforming. You just transfer and you keep moving along, and this process never ends. Well, when did it begin? It never began either. It's always been in the eternal now. It's our mind that tries to quantify, there's that annoying buzzword, right? It tries to measurement, quanta, count, and explain everything. But it's that filter that allows us to experience time, even though time is an illusion. There's just the ever eternal now. So what happens when you die? I don't know the details, but just know that your awareness comes from eternity. It's never been created. It will never be destroyed. Your awareness will continue in one form or another. Matter of fact, there's only one true awareness experiencing itself from different perspectives. So when I stick my hand out to shake somebody's hand, I realize that the other person is me looking back at me. And they could say the same thing. They could say, hey, that's me looking back at me. And that's absolutely true. And so none of us ever really die, is my ultimate answer that I submit to you, is because there is no death. There's just eternity, eternal awareness. God experiences itself from different angles of perspective. And, the whole idea of heaven and hell, those are states of mind. It's not a geographical place that you go to. Anyway, I don't want to get to our rambling, so just recap real quick. What happens when we die? Well, we have to know who we are and where we come from before we can address this third question. So, who are we? We're all each other. There's only one big awareness that we all come from that's always existed. This world is not this. What scientists cannot find physical matter. It's just what we observe. So it's just that awareness experiencing itself as within, so without. So if you're God and you know yourself within, you kind of step out and look back at yourself from different angles. And so that's who we are. Where do we come from? Eternal source. You're in eternity right now. That's the natural state. You're in eternity right now. And there is no past. If you have a thought about the past, it's just a thought that you have in the now. So what happens when we die? The final question we're trying to get to. You have to understand, to say, well, what happens when I die? Suggests that you once didn't exist and then now all of a sudden you do. But that's not the case at all. You've always existed. Your awareness. I'm not talking about your physical body. I'm talking about your awareness has always existed and will always exist in one form or another. Progressing forward, awakening more and more, waking up more and more. Jesus said, the treasures that you build up in your heart is what you take with you. I have a lot of board games and comic books and stuff like that. I won't get to take those with me, but the treasures I build up in my heart is what I take with me to my next life. Okay, so I hope you found this enlightening, and I hope you're doing well wherever you're at. And if you're new to this channel, I hope this is the video where I've earned your subscription. If not, then we'll try it again. Have a great day. Cheers.